Mission, the district mission statement, the mission of the Exeter West Greenwich Regional School District is to empower students to dream, reach, and succeed. Open forum. The open forum is restricted to 1 minute limit per person for a maximum of 5 minutes allowed in the open forum. Statements must be submitted in writing prior to the meeting in the collection box located in the meeting. No statements should address personnel, employees, elected officials. Litigation or negotiations as restricted by the open meetings regulations. The school committee cannot take action or vote on topics introduced that are not reflected on the agenda. So I'd also like to say this is a school committee meeting held in public, but it is not a public meeting. So
how is it not a public meeting?
I am going to recognize member
Can you leave your mask on, please? That's
Griffiths.
mandate.
I'm gonna recognize member Griffiths. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to reiterate what Ms. Kilday said before the start of the meeting. The committee as a whole did not change the open forum rules for this session, and I'm curious as to why we are not allowing up to the 15 minutes as we did in the past, and why we are not allowing the constituents of these districts to speak. We let it go way beyond 15 minutes for the mask mandate, and I'm not quite sure why we would allow this. I'm also questioning the requirement of them submitting a written statement. That is difficult because not everyone may have been prepared with that, and not everyone may feel comfortable doing that. So when they speak, they have the option to do it even if they cannot write as such. And I'm a little bit concerned that we're taking away people's rights in this process.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes member Pandy.
I would like to add to Member Griffith's statement. Item 4 of the open forum is written, does not follow our school committee bylaws, specifically Article 5, Section 1, nor School Committee Policy 1401, specifically Section 6. School committee open forum has a 15-minute time limit. There's no time limit for an individual, and written statements to be submitted prior to the meeting are not required. If we were going to change the rules for the open meeting, that's a full school committee decision, not a chair decision.
You know what? I'll get some advice from the solicitor. I hate putting a guy on the spot, but what's your opinion about the open forum change and how it relates to policy?
Well, just not knowing this would be here tonight, I will tell you, generally speaking, the policy or a rule or a regulation or rules that have been adopted by the school committee, those are to be adopted as a whole and changed as a whole. So if there's a change tonight, it would have to be for a specific reason,
Sure.
and it would have to be then put to a vote.
All right. So what I will do at this point is put to vote a motion that the school committee proceeds with the open forum direction as dictated in paragraph 4 of the November 23rd, 2021 meeting. Do I have a second? No second. Okay. Doesn't carry. So we're going to proceed with open forum, and you will have.
I second it.
Oh, you seconded it. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't.
We're going with that.
All right.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
We'll discuss it.
Discussion.
Oh, yeah, discussion.
I didn't see any hands go up.
Well, I mean, you have to say it's a discussion. You're not following the rules.
Thank you. Discussion. None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. John? What?
Nay.
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 All right. Motion doesn't carry. So here we go. Open forum, I have, okay, so understand that you can't speak freely because as always been in the case of open forums, you cannot talk about personnel issues. So I will lead this with Christine Beatty.
Well, it's Kristen, thank you. So
So policy 1401 states that public confidence in this school committee quote rests on conducting its public meetings in an open, orderly, lawful, and respectful manner. Rhode Island General Law 1626 states that the school committee of each city or town shall choose a chairperson that quote may be removed at the pleasure of the committee. We are proud of our school district and don't want unacceptable behavior to undermine the confidence the public has in our school committee. But our bylaws state that the committee chair, quote, may be removed from office with just cause by a supermajority affirmative of 5 or more members for the full committee. We implore all members to hold each other accountable to behavior that is in line with our bylaws and policies. In order to sustain public confidence in this body, we ask that you use the authority given to you by Rhode Island Law 1626 and EWG bylaws, Article 1, Section 5, to do what is best for the Exeter West Branch School District.
Thank you very much. Statement by Linda Hellenberg, 101 Scenic Way Exit.
Linda Steinberg.
Steinberg, sorry.
We represent over 400 members of our community who signed a petition calling for the resignation or recall of the EWG committee chair. Our goal here is to remind all members of the policies and expectations that guide the work of the school committee. As elected leaders, it is your responsibility to hold yourselves and each other accountable to these policies. In school committee policy 1401, proper decorum means showing good manners while attentively listening to other members express their viewpoint. And by moderating own speech, being careful not to dominate the discussion or use language that is personally disrespectful to any member or school official. School committee members are expected to avoid use of abusive or humiliating language or churlish demeanor, and at all times to maintain model courteous behavior. In policy 1401, school committee members are asked to commit to proper decorum. In 2020, only 1 of the 7 committee members refused.
Thank you. The next one that remains is Kevin Green. Go ahead. Honorable School Committee, I request to speak in public forum regarding the school resource officer and the budget. Kevin Green.
Well, I feel kind of bad being here tonight. If you really want to know the truth, I grew up in this town. I went to school here. I've been involved in public life, either on the town council or as a senator or as a town administrator for 4 years. And you know, we're right in the middle of COVID. Why in the heck are we jammed in this little library? We got an auditorium at the school next door. That's one problem. But now moving on to the resource officer, which involves police. Why are we here with 6 or 7 police? This is Exeter, West Greenwich. The only thing these 2 communities got, we don't have villages or anything else. The whole community is the school system. It's where the parents meet, it's where the kids meet, it's where we all get together. That's the core of our community. To have this kind of baloney go on. Last 2 weeks ago, whenever your last school committee meeting was, we were having a nice promotional ceremony in the high school auditorium for our police officers and our fire and rescue people. After that, I walked into the school committee meeting with 2 council members. Lee Kissinger, who's on the council, was in the meeting. I don't know if he said something before we got in there, but none of the other 2 of us, 3 of us said a word. We walked out in the hall and you came out, Mr. Chairman, and you accosted our vice president. You challenged him to meet you outside. And then when I got on there about budget, I want to know what your statement meant. You said on 3 or 4 people, you wait till you see what I do to West Greenwich in next year's budget. Don't deny it, because we were all standing right there when you said it. Now, I'm here partly to stick up for our 3 school committee members. Because I started watching, I haven't been going to that many meetings, but I started watching some of these meetings. And these members from West Greenwich, or even the ones from Exeter, are not going to be talked down to. I mean, what planet are you on if you think in this day and age?
Mr. Green, Mr. Green, you're obviously
You
talking
can
about
say
a
the Claude
personnel
Bean
action.
Well, I'm not your husband either, Paul.
You damn right, brother.
With that, we can do a lot better than this.
All right.
Crying out loud.
All right.
It's embarrassing that we even got to be here, and you should be ashamed of yourself for moving this meeting over to this little tiny library
Yeah,
We got a whole auditorium.
we do have more. Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Because you thought that you were getting over the town line and that took the West Orange police out of it. I know what's going on here. We got state troopers here. We got 2 town cops here. We got your Exeter constables.
Thank you.
Is this really what we're about? We gotta have 7 law enforcement people at a school.
We are
committee meeting?
dangerous people, Kevin.
All right, thank you, thank you. All right, so that's the end of the of that.
I put my name in there.
Thank you.
I put my name in there.
There
It
are
is?
others
I
that
didn't
were
see it.
I put my name in.
Where is it?
It's on a piece of paper. I didn't know I had to do it.
Tina Lobos.
It's mine on
All
there.
right, I'm looking.
Chairman Fadden, doesn't matter who submitted statements. If people want to speak, they may speak. We voted and the statements were voted down.
Yeah.
There's a sticky note.
Tina
in the
Lobo?
back of
Is it Tina
Yeah,
Lobo?
right here.
All right, go ahead. I thought you were.
I prepared statements, so I'm just gonna read through. Bylaws, Article 3, Section 3, quotes, effective operation of the school district depends on mutual respect among the school committee, superintendent, and school administrators. This respect is earned and maintained by members who, among other things, maintain respectful dialogue at meetings. There are many examples of behaviors that do not adhere to this guideline. Quote, strive to conduct itself in a manner that inspires confidence in its leadership. In bylaws, Article 5, Section 4. According to bylaws, quote, the chair has no more authority than has any other member of the committee. According to bylaw 10 of Robert's Rules of Orders, when a member has the floor, the chair may not interrupt with few exceptions. And if the members are reasonably prompt in exercising their right to speak or make motions, the chair cannot prevent their doing so. There is nothing to justify the unfortunate habit some chairmen have of constantly speaking on questions before the assembly, even interrupting the members who has the floor. And most of this is quoted in the sections I mentioned.
Sure. Thank you very much. Ted, I don't have your
I have
thing, but I'm
a
gonna
white
let you
piece of
speak.
paper, a yellow piece of paper there.
If you look on the back of
It's on
some
the
of the
back of your-
sheets,
one of the pieces of paper I just saw.
yeah, there's a
sticking
yellow sticky. On that
There it is.
side,
It's right there. It's in that pile.
no, put the pile down the other way and then let them see it.
Yeah, just let him speak.
Just let
Ted.
them, just, just.
Oh.
There you go.
Ted, you want to talk? Go ahead.
Yes, I do. What I find offensive here is that we have a situation where for years, we have to follow the rules and regulations the way they go. And then all of a sudden, Mr. McFadden decides that because he is being questioned about what he wants to do, he turns around and changes all of the laws and the bylaws and everything else like that. That can't be done. If we start changing these things on a regular basis like this, I mean, we're going into what is it, Napoleon type of a situation. And I find it offensive to both towns that that's the way he had to deal with it. I will say that Mr. McFadden may be making a very good point when he did it. He was sticking up for the elderly people and the people who are not contacted, and he was right. And it's so sad that his point was so good, but he had to turn around and attack everyone. So I would ask that the people on the school committee take into consideration his point of view. And because it was a good point of view, and I am an elderly person, and that's the way it should be handled. But once again, he has a tendency to not respect people, I guess you want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. McFadden, Chair, Mark Toy, Council President, West Street, would like to say a few words. I know you might not like that, you're moving your eyes around. I know we don't see eye to eye, but a couple of things I'd like to say. I'm going on my 18th year on the Town Council of West Greenwich, last 10 as president of the Town Council. There's no way that our council, I would allow anyone in my council to act like you have acted in the last few months. Now, we've seen this from you from the past, being in joint meetings. What's happening now is you are driving a wedge between the two towns. Trying to sandbag West Greenwich about going to put our taxes up, things of that nature.
May I?
No, I got the floor, Mr. McFadden, okay? That's one of your issues. When I have the floor, legal counsel here, I have the right to talk, and then you can rebut what I have to say.
I don't plan on that, sir. Continue.
That'll be a first. But what's happening now in West Greenwich is a groundswell of people that have come to me that want to start exploring taking apart the school district. because they feel if West Greenwich is gonna get hammered under your leadership, we might as well go it alone. That's something that I am not in favor of, but I think that's what it's coming to unless there's changes made on the school committee. So that being said, it's time, I think, that you relinquish the chair. You give it to someone else, and you just become a member of the committee.
Thank you. Thank you. The open forum is now closed. We're going to move on to consent agenda. Jim?
Is that legal? Once the open forum's open, I
I
believe.
just
the
closed it.
ACLU says, and OMA says, everybody who wants to talk has a right to talk.
Who else wants to speak?
I do. I want to read the prepared statement.
Your statement's already on the agenda.
Okay, but
There you go.
there's other people in the room that might want to hear it.
Your statement is already on the agenda.
I'd
like it to hear read.
I'm sorry, you know, it's already on the agenda as it's stated here. If it's not on the agenda, your correspondence is on the agenda.
So what do you
Is it not?
Like everybody said.
Did you
Is it
entertain a
not?
motion to hear it now?
No, you have to follow the rules, and the rules say unless.
You need to have your mask on.
All right, thank you. If you want to read the statement, you can't because it's identified on the agenda. You know that you're a chairman. Thank you. All right, we're going to proceed with the consent agenda.
I
Jim?
would like to appeal your decision. I just need a second.
Second.
All those in favor of list, what's your motion?
I would like to continue with the open session and allow our
Wait,
member to speak.
That's not the issue. The issue is you want to create a motion that
He doesn't
says,
have to read the letter. He can still speak. He's part of the public. He came here to speak. We're still in open
If he
session,
wants to
15
speak, he
minutes. You
can.
voted to have 15 minutes.
well, he can, but he can't read his letter because his letter's already on the agenda. Can you read the agenda where it states that the school committee?
I'll try and win.
Go ahead, Lee. I gotta bring this to an end. Go ahead. You got something to say, say it.
Okay. My name is Lee Kissinger. I'm a 20+ year resident of West Greenwich, and I served on the school committee for 9 years. I'm also a member of the West Greenwich Town Council. And in short, yes, you have the letter, but you know what? It's not all about Exeter. The Exeter West Greenwich School District is a community that represents both towns. And you've been treating it like an extension of the Exeter Town Council for the last several months. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. And your focus hasn't been on the education of the kids. It's been on benefiting Exeter's tax base at the expense of West Greenwich. So I suggest, as Mark said, that it's time for you to step aside and resign your position and allow someone else to take over. In short, that's what I have to say.
All right, very good. Thank you. We have a lot of work to do tonight. All right. So is there anybody else that wants to speak in open forum?
Can I speak first? I'm Correspondence. I'm a parent from Exeter. And just hearing the last comment about West Greenwich trying to separate from Exeter makes me exceptionally upset. I love this community. I graduated from this community. I want to be part of both communities. So I just want everyone to take a moment to think about what's happening here, whether putting anyone's agenda aside, and just think about what we're doing for our children. And that's it.
Thank you. We have just come to the end of the 15-minute open session. Consent agenda, Jim, please.
One more.
We've just come to the end of the 15-minute agenda, all right? Jim, please. Consent agenda, proceed.
You're not gonna let somebody speak?
You have a 15-minute limit. Those are the old rules. Jim, please.
I would like to
You're not in
appeal.
America today.
I would like to appeal the decision of the chair. Take a second.
I'm not going to recognize that. We are proceeding
For the
with the
mass
old
mandate
rules.
meeting,
Jim,
we extended well beyond the 15-minute
please
limit. This is
proceed
a
with
huge,
consent
this is a
agenda.
very important
We the people.
meeting.
Jim, if you don't mind,
My
proceed with
children need
consent
to keep
agenda.
their masks on in the school, but you need to keep your mask on in the school also, at all times.
Jim, please. with consent.
Okay, under consent, we have the approval of the regular school committee meeting minutes of November 9th. We have 3 appointments, if you could strike that under number 1A. That is not an appointment that will be happening. We have our monthly bills, and we have 4 homeschool approvals who have submitted complete applications for approval tonight.
Would any of the members like something pulled on the consent agenda? Mr. Mark,
I would like to pull the 2021-22 school committee budget summary.
where is that on the consent agenda?
Under bills.
Sure, so you want to pull the bill?
I would like to pull the bills.
Sure. Proceed. So I'm going to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda minus the bills. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Nay, abstentions, received.
So I noticed on the 2021-2022 school committee budget under SI legal services, we have budgeted $35,000 for this year. And thus far, we have used 17,000 of that, over 51% in just a few months that we have been in session, and a few months since we hired our new legal.
Mhm.
I was informed that when we hired our new legal, the cost of the legal, which was not provided to us, was in alignment with what we have paid in the past and what we budgeted in the past. Yet the details of this don't seem to state that. I'd like an explanation of why we're spending so much money on so many taxpayer dollars on legal fees.
What are you asking me for? I don't know. Bob,
Bob, do you have a summary of what the legal expenses have been?
Yes, so it's important to recognize it is year-to-year look. August, September, and October. November billing is still underway as it is the month of November. The former legal counsel on a average 3 months was running about just around $4,000, maybe a little less than $4,000. At this time, for 2 full months of billing from the incumbent, we're running at about $4,400. So just a little bit over, but the comparison is a little difficult due to the body of legal work that they're doing. Some is what I would call standard. It's just verifying or responding to a pretty straightforward question. Some is a little more in depth regarding whether it's personnel, student issue, or legal issue that requires a little more work. So I don't think that there is enough data right now to show that, but on a 10-month year, we're probably running about $4,400, $44,000. So we're probably going to hit about just over $50,000 at this rate.
So well over our budgeted amount.
We would exceed our budgeted amount.
Do we have an understanding of how much money we spent to send our letter to the Department of Education for review?
So the
letter regarding group home aid?
Yeah, that's another one of those, it kind of, the billing fell under 2 different firms. So one was initially crafted by the former, and then kind of followed up with the incumbent. So again, it's kind of hard to say who owns what at this point. I need to do a little more, another look at that.
I'd like to put that on our next agenda to take a close look at our legal bills. My concern is that in our last meeting, our current representation shared his close relationship with the town of Exeter's council. It was told to us that we were going to it was proposed that we were going to look at new council, even though we had a lot of evidence that our existing council was not, as Member Pandey had presented or shared, was not only reasonably priced, but the best in the state as far as we had evidence of when it comes to special education, which is the primary role of a legal counsel on a school committee. We were also not provided with any costs when the committee approved to replace our old council with our new council. So I'm very concerned that only a few months in, we're basically projecting to be almost 33%, I would say roughly, over our budgeted amount and using tax dollars to pay for that. And in some instances, we spent money sending letters to get back no change. So we're literally wasting money. That's all.
So I'm going to respond to that if you don't mind. Between this year's budget amount identified versus the previous year, it was cut about 17%. Okay. So previous year it was 40,000, this year it's 35. Prior to that, the budget had been as high as $50,000 over the previous few years. And so this represents a significant decline in the appropriation amount for that budget item. Probably, I remember seeing it at its high about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, around $50,000. So between where we are today at 35, which is 5,000 less than last year, and when it was probably at its maximum of $50,000, well, you can do the rough math on that. It's probably a 23% change in overall budget amount. So, you know, there's going to be these kind of issues that come up. So
I'd like to respond to that.
by all means.
Bob mentioned 55,000, so that's above our highest 50,000, which you just mentioned. That's where we're tracking to be.
Sure.
It appears to me that you're using our legal counsel paid for by the town for your own personal use to set items on the agenda.
That's a serious
In the
allegation.
interest-
You're gonna have to save that. All right,
the
thank you.
interest of expert.
That's a serious allegation. Thank you very much on that one. All right, so, so we need a motion at this
What's the legal
time.
bill gonna be when we get the contract?
We need a motion at this time to accept bills as identified.
I'll make the motion.
All right, motion is to accept the
Second.
bills for $604,257.36. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, notify by saying aye. Nay, abstentions. Okay, motion passes. I'm going to turn correspondences over to Diane Allen at this time.
Does anyone want to pull anything? We have East Providence School Department, one from Lincoln Public Schools, one from Jim, one from Lee. If not,
I'd like to pull the letter from correspondence number 4. The letter from Lee Kissinger. And I'd also like to just add a comment of congratulations to the 2 teachers for receiving the teacher grants.
Actually, I think he went over that at the beginning of the meeting pretty much.
I'd like to have a discussion.
So you
Yes.
have one phone.
Yeah, we can't.
Oh. Okay.
So in the letter from me that he summarized, he pointed out, as many of the other attendees in open session today, concerns about the chair, our current chairperson. And I'd like to put on the agenda for new business for our next meeting to review the violations of the bylaw and consider replacement of the chairman.
that we would probably have to go into executive session.
Right.
Personnel issues. Agenda would go into
Oh,
executive.
you don't think that deserve, oh, so, Mr. Solicitor, would something like that require executive session?
When you want to discuss me, you would give me going to executive
May I
session.
ask the solicitor a question? Mr. Solicitor, would such a topic be appropriate for executive session?
It would be, because there'd be grounds set forth that should be made public until such time as
Sure.
is found to be grounds under the standard set forth, which is just cause.
Sure.
Can we
Point of
do?
information.
Oh, Kevin, please, this is a, what about, Kevin, please, don't make me have to take action. This is a school committee meeting held in public. It's not a public meeting. Don't interrupt us,
Just
please.
as a
Can we
point
have
of
a discussion?
clarification through the solicitor. They were moving you for disciplinary reasons, Chairman, that's one thing. But by the charter and everything else, at any time, with a motion and a second, it can go on to the agenda to switch to chairman. That doesn't have to go to executive session. That's done right out in the public.
You're right, the removal has to be in public, and no question about it.
But if it wasn't a removal, I mean, this board can sit here at any time and say, well, I think we ought to have a new chairman, and somebody puts up a motion, and on the next school committee meeting, you vote whether you want to switch chairmans or not. There's nothing in that charter that says you're chairman forever, or you gotta show cause to get rid of anybody or anything else. You as a board, you can, if you were gonna bring up charges for a specific reason, we may have to go in executive session, but as far as for any town council or any school committee or anything else, you're at your own will. You've got, a majority of votes that want to change something, you just have to add it on the agenda and do it.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
No.
That was very enlightening.
Rhode Island General Law 1626.
Okay.
The chair may be removed at the pleasure of the committee.
Enough of the interruptions. Thank you.
I would like
That's
to
not
make a
an
motion
interruption, that's a point
to,
of information.
No, I'm saying,
I would like to make a motion to add this to the next agenda.
I second her motion.
I don't even think you have to make a motion, right?
I think I can just request it, but.
Right.
Mhm.
Just
I know that's actually-
request it, you don't have to make a motion.
all right, let's go.
Thank you.
All right, so you have to handle this thing.
Your motion on the floor?
Diane, you just have to say the correspondences.
Oh, correspondence.
All right, thank you.
You gotta vote on
We have a motion on the floor.
Which is what?
We have a motion by
Did she withdraw the
member
motion?
Monroe, withdraw a motion.
Okay, what's the
No,
motion?
we were just gonna.
And I do think she should make a motion because
Then
you
by all means,
apparently
do.
review what we want on the agenda, which isn't appropriate either. It should be placed on the agenda if we want something on the agenda. So
Just-
we have a motion on the floor and it should be voted on.
Somebody seconded?
I
Yep.
did.
All right, thank you. Okay, discussion? None. Oh, wait a minute, it's under correspondences, it's Diane.
Oh, okay, any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor of putting it on the agenda?
Please say out what it is.
Putting, can you repeat exactly what? how
The
you-
microphone, please.
Just to add this.
Just to add it to.
Yeah,
what
I'd like to add
exactly?
for discussion and motion, chairman removal
On the agenda for
in violation of the bylaws.
violation of bylaws. For, put it on the agenda for next month's meeting.
Yes.
Okay, more discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. And opposed.
All right. You done with correspondences, Diane?
Member Sullivan, vote. Did you vote?
Abstain.
Diane, you done with correspondence?
Diane, did you say motion carried?
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Monthly subcommittee reports.
There's no update.
All right. Anybody have any questions for monthly subcommittee report? New business, we're gonna skip over 3801.
Capital.
Member Dunn, Chairman Dunn, may I say something?
Diane was speaking first, called Claudine. Claudine was.
You said we're not going to address policy 3801, so I have a question.
Diane spoke first. Can I recognize Claudine? Can I recognize the first person who's on the floor, which is Diane Allen? Proceed, Diane.
I just wanted to ask Bob about the capital project building committee.
Sure, we can do that now. So, we had a building committee meeting last night. The project is moving along really good. All the work generally is being above on the rooftop during the day. If you drive through the campus, you'll see about 4 or 5 of the general contractors vans there. They're tying in all the, what I'll call the hardware, which are the rooftop units and the associated ductwork. And then after the students are released, they're going into the building and they're doing all the electrical and control hookups that need to be done inside the building. So they're really working very well. Steve Daly, our facilities director, is doing a great job of managing that and working with them. They anticipate that the commissioning work will start probably at the beginning to early December, and that's the commissioning agent, which is part of the RIDE regulations for these type of projects that they do. It's a third party who will make sure that the systems are operating as designed and is built per the specifications of the project. So that's all very positive. Jeremy Taylor and his team are working with ATC, who's the GC, and the commissioning agent to make sure that they can log on, because this will be a fully remote system. So be able to control it from any smart device. The HVAC. The building committee took action last night. There were items that were identified during the review of the project that specifically were not included in the project because of the cost, and we were being very cost conscious in the design work. It came to roughly around, in round numbers, about $144,000 worth of work. And the building committee took action to approve those additional works. It was work that's identified as really what I call putting a gold star on the project. There are things that are just gonna benefit the community. And what I mean by that is there's some classroom unit ventilators that are gonna get changed out that will really improve the teaching environment. So low cost, ATC is fully deployed, so it makes sense, and it will help with the, like I said, the classroom environment, and it will be that thing that isn't bothering people that we spent $4.5 million and we didn't replace that unit, you know, so that's really important. The other thing which is hot on, it goes to everything that, we're hearing tonight about the community. And that is, it's a rural community that has a great foundation in agriculture. We're working really hard to get the right thing done. And that is in regards to the greenhouse. The superintendent has been working with, URI, and our school committee member Monroe worked with URI. We're doing outreach. We just want to make sure that what ends up being put in is what everybody will be happy with, because it is the community, and there's nothing worse than buyer's remorse. So we're working really hard to get past that. The building committee was attentive. There were some members community members who came and spoke, and for the better of the core right now, I'll let everybody know that, the next meeting is December 13th, and there'll be the proposed greenhouse. The designer, the representative for that will be at will be really the lead person at that meeting. and we'll be discussing that, the benefits of the proposal, which I just want to remind everybody here has gone through the stage 1, 2, and 3 process, approved by RIDE, voted and approved by the voters. And, you know, we're right at that, we're about to push it over the finish line, and we want to make sure everybody has a chance to say what they want to say. I see Michael Davis in the audience. He sits on that committee, and he's on the building committee, and he's made some real good points last night too. So thanks for that support, Mike. Other than that, all good.
Thank you.
Oh, most importantly, this element of the project, the HVAC at the junior, senior high school, out of the $17.8 million represents about almost $5.7 million. Even with the ads that we put in, we're anticipating finishing this element of the project with about $750,000 to an $800,000 positive balance. Just on it. I should leave right now.
Are there any other questions or statements under monthly subcommittee reports? None. All right, I'm going to new business. I'm going to remove for the time being 3801. Next, transportation provides an additional school van for career technical education, non-public school routes, discussion action. Who's got this, Jim or Bob?
I'm under item A1.
Mr. Solicitor, I'm going to appeal to you. Can I move beyond an item?
You just removed it.
Do I have a question?
Please put your mask on. Maybe you should ask the policeman again if you can get people removed from the meeting.
Sure, I will do that. Mr. Solicitor, my question for you is, can I advance the motion? Can I advance the agenda? I'm not prepared to discuss this, and I asked for this to be put on.
If it's your matter that you put on, then subject to the majority objecting, because it's been posted, then you have a right to remove it, because it's your right.
So I'll just remove it.
I have a general, Attorney Craven, I have a
vote.
general comment. It's not regarding policy 3801.
And that would be fine.
Thank you.
So what do you have, a point of order?
So my comment for the 3801 is that it was on the agenda and there's no specifics as to what was going to be discussed or supporting documentation. And that's a continuous problem of items that you put on the agenda.
Sure.
So when you put it on next time, I'd like to ask that you state specifically what you'd like to discuss and provide us with supporting documentation.
Sure. Sure.
It's important.
It is important.
The
And I
school
think,
committee members need to be prepared for
Sure.
discussion on a specific topic. And without specifics and documentation,
was not 3801 put in the packet?
we don't know what you'd like to discuss.
The existing policies in the packet.
Thank you. All right, so we skipped it over anyways. All right, thank you. We will do that. New business, transportation, providing an additional school van for career technical education, non-public schools. I got a feeling, Bob, this is yours.
Okay, so just a quick primer on the transportation world. So coming out of COVID, so now all students in the state are, or the majority, 98.9% are going back to school. Created a significant labor shortage in the areas of school bus drivers and school bus monitors. At that time, we were using statewide. So there is our in-district provider and statewide. Statewide moved all of our students that went out of district. So those were our students who went to career and technical schools, and teachers who and students who went to charter schools and that were within our region or in our district, and then the parochial schools, Southwest Bay Christian Academy, Monsignor Park. So in order to And the important thing is, those students are all residents of the community. Okay, they're in West Greenwich. Statewide could not move those students. So our residents had nowhere, they had a transportation issue. A decision was made that we would start moving those students with our in-district fleet. So we kind of took 99% of the business away from statewide and brought it back into the district. And we are now responsible for moving those students. The savings of doing that, well, I don't have it in front of me. At the first blush of the cost analysis was of a magnitude, I want to say between $230,000 to $300,000. You have to sit in the seat of trying to move 1,600 students to understand how fluid that situation becomes. And then the fact that, Exeter West Greenwich is 109 square miles, so it's quite a burden to the school district. So, or to the bus transportation provider. So the long and short of it is typically we have the month of September to kind of sort out the routes and build in, you start to get efficiencies, you start to see what the true ridership is, just not based on the demographic numbers, but what's the actual ridership. And you kind of have a month of shakeout. Well, it was really exacerbated this year simply because of the labor shortage in the transportation and the drivers and the monitors. There's another little topic, and I can see the curriculum director, Dr. Hearn, shaking your head a little bit, and that is the homeless. And I see some members in the audience who are involved in enrollment, and they understand what homeless means to us. So really quickly, a student who is a resident of EWG becomes homeless and moves out of the district, but still wants to attend EWG, we have half of the responsibility to move them back into the district. A student who becomes homeless from another district and becomes homeless and is residing in EWG, but wants to go to their former district from which they became homeless, we don't have the transportation to move them back. Statewide cannot respond to that because of their labor shortage. So we're scrambling, and the amount of effort people just, it's just one of those things. It's just, as we like to call it, sand in our shorts. And so anyway, the long and short of it is, we've had some residents who have really been patient with us. But as you can see in the packet, we have some students that are arriving to school late, which is totally unacceptable. We have students that they're 4 miles from their bus stop. We have a 1.5 hour ride in the PM, a 1.25 hour ride in the PM, a 2 hour ride in the PM. So adding this bus or van, I should say, it's a minivan, will alleviate the situation here and get us in good stead with the parents, make their quality of life better, get the students to school on time, and not have them arriving to school late or waiting a half hour after school dismisses to get picked up. So with all due respect, the motion is on the floor. Most importantly, there's still money in the budget for this ban due to the savings that we got from bringing all that statewide work back into this.
So is this state dollars we're talking about, Bob?
No, this is operations. This is in our operations budget.
It's what?
This is in our operations budget.
So where does our operations budget begin, and where does the state busing dollars begin? In other words, I'm confused. Do we not get? Because I might be confused.
So the statewide offered a service to districts to transport children, but we still paid for that service out of our operations budget. They no longer are doing that for us, so we're no longer paying them. In turn, we're paying our local vendor, and that's where we got the savings, because our local vendor is able to do it for a much lower cost than what we were paying the state.
Sure.
That's the 300,000 that Bob was talking about. The one caveat, and this is where your question comes from, I believe, is that when we use statewide transportation, we also received a revenue from the state to offset our transportation. But they have removed that revenue from us because we don't get it unless we use statewide transportation. So we saved about $300,000 in the expense, but we also lost about $140,000 in a revenue because they took it away from us once we stopped utilizing the state. The offset, the net change is still a positive for us, but we no longer receive that revenue from the state. I think that's what you were thinking about. That's the question.
All right. So I guess as far as there's still my confusion. So there's busing dollars that come via state aid, right? Correct.
Which we don't get anymore.
Which we don't get anymore effective when did that happen?
Start of this year.
Start of this year. Shoot.
After the budget was passed.
Sure. That's nice. All right. Great.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the expenditure of $33,419.10 for the addition of a minivan to the transportation fleet for the school year 2022.
Discussion. None. Motion's moved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Abstentions. Unfinished business, October 1 enrollment closed.
So as was referenced earlier, we are getting down to the nub here. We've got 3 students that were still away proof of residency. We started out with 12, 2 from Exeter, 10 from West Greenwich. So we're down to trying to resolve the last 3. As it sits right now, the dial moved very slightly. We're still 1,643 kids, 797 for Exeter, 846 for West Greenwich, or 48.5s to 51.5 split. We're just waiting for the final 3 to be resolved. And that'll be the numbers going forward.
Questions or comments from the membership? No. Charter Review Committee update.
Okay, I'll take this one.
Sure.
We had our last meeting on November 16th, I believe the date was. At that meeting, they actually took a vote on a new process for determining proportionate share. And the vote was in the affirmative to move forward with the 5-year rolling average, which is something that we have discussed as a group in the past. So that will be going forward to the school committee and to the 2 town councils once the charter review committee wraps up their work. There was also a vote on allowing for budget amendments to be made. That was voted down. There was some significant conversation related to the process for how to initiate a charter review committee or changes to the charter, because we felt like it needed to be more solidified, more shored up in the charter. So good conversation on that. That was not voted on because there were some adjustments that were being made that will happen at the next meeting, which is scheduled I think for next week. We also know that at the next meeting, there will be conversation about the building committee makeup and the role of the building committee, because that's been something that has caused some discussion in the past. We want to make sure that it's really clear in the charter. And there was also a request to talk about an audit committee. I think that's something that I know Charaho does. Not really sure what the request is, but it was put on the agenda for the next meeting. So I'll report back after we have that next meeting.
I'd like to elaborate on that audit committee. That is actually part of their budget process, that they get representation like from a person from the communities from each town, the treasurer from each town, and then they make recommendations to the committee as to what their financial recommendations are for that year for the budget. So it's kind of a financial recommendation type of committee, which takes direct input from, the treasurer of the department. The treasurer and from each of those towns in Charahoe participate in the process. So, if there's like, for obvious reasons, like if you're gonna shoot a budget request that's gonna cost somebody 5% over their budget, right? The treasurer would speak up and say, we can't afford that number. So that's in their chart. So it's a good idea. I like it, and hopefully that sticks. Any questions or comments on charter review committee from the membership? 21-22 return to school guidance updates.
So last week, at the end of the week, I sent out a pretty comprehensive communication. I know I copied every member of the school committee. It went out to the whole community. Just to, as I typically do, report on our updates regarding positive cases in quarantines. Our positive cases remain pretty constant over the last 4 reporting periods, and I do it in 2-week chunks of time. So that information was provided. I also reported on vaccination rates because our first clinic was held this month, and for the first time, students age 5 to 11 were eligible. We have about 25% of our population at the 2 elementary schools who have at least their first of the 2 vaccination shots. So I'll get that report from the state on a monthly basis, and I'll be able to report that out. And then I also took the opportunity to clear up some conversations, I'll say, that have been occurring in the community about the difference between where we have flexibilities and where we don't. So there are mandates that we must follow. For example, an executive order of the governor saying that we must wear masks is not something that we can just decide not to follow. But in the playbook, there are certain flexibilities that we have. So I tried to spell out for everybody where we utilize the flexibilities and where we cannot utilize flexibilities, because there was a lot of conversation. So hopefully that was informative. I had a lot of positive comments from members of the community who read my mailing, and I don't have much more to say beyond that. It was pretty comprehensive communication that I sent out.
Questions or comments for the committee?
It's just nice to see the COVID numbers going down.
I'm a little worried right now. We're going into the holidays. I know on the news just yesterday, they're indicating that they're seeing an uptick again across the country at various places in the country. It feels like we're getting a few more cases this week, and then we have the holidays. So, we'll hope for the best, but the last 8 weeks, we've been very steady at a low number, which is really good. I mean, we started high. If you recall, we had almost 30 cases in our first 2-week period, and now we're below 10 in each of the 2-week periods that I've been reporting, which is good.
Any additional comments or questions from the membership? No. Next item, capital project update bond discussion. Nothing? You're good? Okay, next under unfinished business is item E, prohibiting electronic public equipment data email addresses, reminding parents of children in the district to vote on the all-day referendum, bond events, charter amendments, discussion action. I'm going to ask at this time the solicitor who did not make, in the last discussion we had on this, I neglected to solicit our attorney on an opinion on this, so I'm gonna turn it over to the attorney for his observations on this matter. And after that, I'll open it up to the committee. So, Bob, could you give us some guidelines? Thank you.
Sure. There's two issues I wish to discuss, and take the second one first. I think it's possible, if not probable, with the existing information that the state has, the Secretary of State's office and the Board of Elections, to retrieve the data necessary with very little cost, if any at all, to be able to press the button and not only notify all parents, but notify all registered voters. I think that would solve the problem. But I do have some concerns that would be run by the appropriate state agency, which would be both the Secretary of State as well as the Board of Elections and their legal counsel, as to whether or not there's an equal protection clause of the Constitution concern, as the parents are getting notice and the non-parent citizens are not. I think it's same day notice that they remind people to go out and vote, but without having to go through that expense and aggravation. I think that maybe if you, I could suggest that myself and the superintendent, I can make the inquiries as to how to receive that information, and with IT's help, you can see how difficult it would be to incorporate that in your press the button and notice at 5 o'clock at night, whenever it is that you have in your townwide referendum, to remind everybody to come out and vote for the school district. Because there's a lot of people said tonight, and I agree 100%. This is about the kids, and shouldn't be any politics in that. So, okay.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to open it up to the floor, to the membership. Go ahead. Anybody? So do we all remember what this is about? This is about our electronic system. You all asked for enclosures that appeared in your package. So it was, in essence, I think, what the solicitor is suggesting is that there is a system available at the state level to allow us to notify every resident in Exeter, or every voter in Exeter, and every voter in West Greenwich.
Right.
Right, that's great.
Yes.
Of this public activity that's going on in the town that's actually going to have a vote. So in this case, it could be it could be the budget, it could be the bond. So if the school committee chooses to, they could say, all right, we're going to send a notification on the day of this public event being held by the Board of Canvassers to every voter registered in Exeter and West Greenwich. And I think that's a great idea. And I hope that we can pursue that so that senior citizens, parents, employees, young people without children could all get the benefit of that notification from the school department, whatever it may be, to participate in that election, whatever it is, the budget, the bond, or anything else we can think of. I think it's a great idea. It sounds like equality, and I like that. So again, I'm going to open up to the floor because I thought this was a pretty important and heated discussion, and the information was asked for and provided, so I would have expected a little bit of a dialogue. Anybody at this point?
I think it also follows our own policy under item 4 here, neutral and factual. It says that basically it should be circulated equally among all the town residents of towns. It is assumed under policy 3901.
Sure, I think that's a great idea. So I'm going to put a motion on the floor to have Exeter West Greenwich School Committee authorize superintendent and/or the EWG solicitor to determine the feasibility of integrating the state notification of election system into our existing system. Could I have a second?
Second.
All right. Now there's a motion on the floor. Now they can have a discussion. Member Pandy.
Attorney Craig, maybe I missed this. What is there a cost associated with this? Just so we know what the impact is on the.
I don't believe there is. I believe that your board of canvassers currently has it available to them. Whether they utilize it or not is another matter, and I'm not saying that. It's just some municipalities use it, some don't. Some political candidates use it and some don't. But it's very specific. It comes with phone numbers. It comes with email addresses. It comes with all the information that one fills out on a registration card is fed into a statewide computer system. And then actually, not only is it disseminated by town, it's disseminated by street and districts, so that you can be very specific as to who you want to notify. And, it's Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated, doesn't discriminate. And, I'm certain that whatever computer system your board of canvassers have in both towns, that I can make arrangements for them to be able to tap into the statewide system that they refer to as, for whatever reason, they call it the van. I don't know why. I don't think there'd be a cost. Because you're entitled to it as a receiver and a disseminator of information for the state, for statewide elections. So your board of canvassers handles state-related, statewide campaigns for elections. And to have you receive that information that the state accumulates, I think would just be fair play. And I'm certain that I can make sure that there wouldn't be any substantial cost other than additional time for your IT person. Whether you can do that in his regular time, I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
And then my other question would be, is it, would the school district be prohibited? Because we do send emails to parents who have authorized us to send them emails of various items. Remember Monroe listed 6, I think, items last time that she got reminders of. I don't have kids, mine graduated. Would it prevent us from still sending out a neutral and factual email to our families in the district?
No. No, I think the only issue really is communication on the elections today. Get out and vote. It's a good budget or it's a good referendum.
Yeah.
And then your specific communication as to programs or whatever that might be included in a budget or a rationale as to why, in other words, advocacy would be separate and apart and be a separate communication.
Yeah, because our policy, we can still send communications to parents, advocate for passage of school budgets and referenda, provide the impact on town shares and town tax rates, and all the relevant facts are objectively disclosed, which we do. So I want to make sure we can still do that. Even if we're sending a reminder out to the whole community, I want to make sure our schools can still send out their emails, and our superintendent always does an excellent email each year with details. So everybody has all the facts and it goes out to the families.
I mean, it's been 6 years plus since I paid, since I had children in the school system, but I'm still an advocate for the schools. I realize what it did for my children. So I think everybody would want to know that information, not just necessarily your parents.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other members from, any other member comments or questions? Yes, Ms. Monroe.
For the database that you would be pulling these emails from, I don't believe every voter is prompted or required to provide an email.
Correct.
So wouldn't this omit voters who don't provide emails? I'm just wondering if there's a better option for us to reach our community at large.
All I was asked to find out was, was this particular form of communicating? And you're right, people have a right. Actually, you get into your 70s and 80s and you find many people don't use the computer in that way. They don't have a website, they don't have an email address. But you just do the best you can. If there's people you can reach, I think that was what the question that was posed to me, can you do that? And if there is additional expense, what is it? And I'm saying, yes, you can do that to the extent that the information is available as the voter chose or not, didn't chose to turn over that personal information.
I just wonder if there's a better way that we could reach out to the community through maybe the towns that have
Sure.
contact information, and instead of maybe this round necessarily using legal fees, to have you go that route, possibly have the towns provide addresses and we can send mailers requesting opt-in so that we ensure that we do get to all of the voters versus those that have access to electronic. or email. Right, so they could provide a phone, maybe give them a phone or email option. I just wonder if maybe we could have Jim spend a little bit of time looking into that option.
Sure. So I know we have a big audience and there's a newspaper or a news camera here. I just want to make it clear that the conversation that we're having is about a reminder communication. That there are on 2 separate occasions prior to the reminders that we previously sent out. On 2 separate occasions, there is already a community-wide, meaning West Greenwich and Exeter-wide mailing that goes to every household.
Right.
And so that everybody is notified of the information. What we're talking about is who gets the reminder. So I just want to be clear that we've not been in the practice of not advertising for really important votes to large sections of our community. So with that being said, we will be having another community-wide mailing going out relatively soon, because as we, work through the budget and as we start to identify what that budget will be, when the community forums are and so forth, we send out a communication with additional information to every resident in the community. So to add a statement about that we're looking to develop, some kind of a community-wide, meaning West Greenwich and Exeter-wide system of reminding of events, important events. If they want to sign up, we can easily do that. I don't know how many people will sign up for it, but we can do it.
It also allows an opt-in, so if you don't want the phone call or email, you don't have to have it. It's still reaching the entire community. And I think it may be less expensive to do it this way since we're already sending a mailer. There's no additional cost for us. Sure,
I just wanted to do a little, is Robin here? Oh, I'm sorry. Robin, is there a motion on the floor at this point? I think there is, correct?
You put them on.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
There is a motion on the floor? Okay. Recognized member Campbell.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Member Monroe's comments. I was reminded. So in West Greenwich, we get robocalls. It's Chief Ramsey's voice. I don't know that it's necessarily everything from Chief Ramsey. But, so Chief Ramsey does robocalls with all important information to West Greenwich residents. So that's already set up with the town of West Greenwich. So I don't know, maybe it could be as simple as asking our town administrator, Kevin Reed, to do a robocall to residents. It's already done, reminding them of the date of vote. So that's actually already done in West Greenwich. No work, no money, no nothing. What do you say, Kevin?
Usually it's used for emergencies.
The code red system used for emergency.
Oh, I'm sorry. Guess I want to be an emergency.
Well, that's how you look at it.
Sure. Any other comments from the membership?
I do. Are you going to change the motion as it currently stands?
What's the motion read, Robin? Do you have that?
It is different. This motion was different than this.
I don't know what the motion was.
Yeah.
EWG School Committee authorized the superintendent and or EWG solicitor to determine feasibility of integrating state notification election into our existing system.
So what's your justification for the motion?
I'm not making a motion. I wanted to clarify what it was because what is listed on the packet, what you put down, is not what has been brought up. So I wanted to be clear as to what it was. That's all.
Is there any other further discussion of the membership at this time? None. So at this time, I'll move the motion. All those in favor of the motion that's currently being addressed on the floor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay. Abstention. John, I didn't see. You're an abstention? You're an nay? So the motion doesn't pass. All right. Did you get the actual vote breakdown, Rob?
Yeah.
Okay. Next item is Exeter Group Home Aid discussion action. This is, again, there has been, I think, a shift since the last motion. So I will turn it over to the solicitor to bring clarification to this motion. I'm sorry, to this subject.
Sure. This was referred to earlier in the meeting by Gentleman Monroe. This was a request for a declaratory order by the superintendent or the commissioner of education in the state of Rhode Island, and she responded to a hypothetical question. And in so doing, she came up with a suggestion as to how to interpret the law. I'll give you a very brief recitation of what that question was. There is a group of people, students, that are in group homes. And when they live in your city or town, or in your case, this school district, which is more than one town, then there's a responsibility to educate those kids, even if they are still at the group home. There's a cost associated with it. And there's a state reimbursement that comes along with, I don't believe it's 100%, but it comes along with those kids being in a school. Question was, if the students are in Exeter, does Exeter get the money back, the reimbursement, even though the district is paying it? Or does West Greenwich get it back? Or does the district get it back? Where did that question come from? Because I could see a few people squinting their eyes and shaking their head saying, why was that a hard question? Well, the statute that has been interpreted, there's three of them actually, wasn't clear. And it wasn't clear in the sense that it says that the money is being reimbursed to the city or town. It doesn't use the word district. And I would suggest that the commissioner's idea of why she ruled what she did was, we don't have many school districts that are separate and apart from a municipality. This one is, it's its own entity. And there's half a dozen other, I think, others in the state of Rhode Island. So the statute itself is deficient as to how it names the people impacted. And she ruled that basically, if the district or anyone else pays the money, then they're the ones who get the reimbursement from the state. Simple as that. So now the question is, should we adopt a policy? And my suggestion after talking to the superintendent last week was, we should just simply adopt a policy consistent with, and I would suggest the exact wording, because it goes through the facts and circumstances, and it names the law and the case law, et cetera, which there was some concerns about making sure that the law was in there. This is the full recitation of what the law is, and that this should be the policy in the future, to the extent that this still continues to happen, because the superintendent tells me these types of payments and arrangements are being phased out. And that there's a limited, the kids that are in the system now will finish their schooling in this manner, having their education paid in this manner. But once the last kid leaves, there'll no longer be a need for a policy. So this spent a few bucks, the last solicitor and myself, creating this interpreting it, and superintendent sent it back to us. So I think that the motion should be, if I could suggest that the school committee adopt the decision by the Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education, that the question of reimbursement for children that are in group homes go to the district and that school district, and that this be the policy in the future in the event that this question comes up again. Happy to answer any questions.
It was personally tough for me to come with any questions because there's literally nothing on here about this motion or about this item, and we also have nothing in our packet about it. And this is consistent. I understand.
This was
I'm
given
just
to you last
making,
time.
yeah, I'm just making it current. It was not given to me.
No, I understand, but last,
And also for clarity, yes, we spent some bucks on this, but so did both towns arguing these cases, and we're back to exactly where we were beforehand. So we are spending a lot of taxpayer dollars on legal fees, just for the record.
So I'm going to take the recommendation of the solicitor and make a motion that basically school administration to create a policy that reflects the content of the commissioner's opinion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Can I just add to that? Can I amend that? Or can you add to it?
I'll withdraw it
that-
and I'll take your recommendation.
That the district will be getting the money as we are phasing out in future, the students who are in these group homes, if their money will be paid by the town that they come from.
So,
Be from us.
so if I make a motion, Diane, that states that the EWG administration, working with the solicitor, will create a policy that contains the education commissioner's opinion with regards to reimbursement, yes, reimbursement, period,
I guess we could just say reimbursement, state reimbursement.
just reimbursement, period. Robin, did you get all of that?
Administration work with the solicitor create policy that contains the education commissioner's opinion with regards to reimbursement.
Is that what you asked for, Diane? Reimbursement? Is that it?
Reimbursement.
Okay.
I think that covers.
Sure. All right. Discussion. Second. Okay, discussion. I recognize member Dan.
So I believe like we discussed last time, a few members. So we have a declaratory order from the commissioner. Case number RIDO 21-001-A, which we have to follow. So if it's the will of the committee to have a policy, we have a policy subcommittee. So the superintendent can work with the policy subcommittee on drafting, frankly, probably a 2-sentence policy, and bring it back to the school committee. It doesn't, with all due respect, Attorney Craven, it doesn't need to, you don't need to be involved in it. It's a really simple, if you want a policy, it's a very simple policy.
I agree.
Thank you.
I'll work on a policy that states that. It's just not something that we have typically done, because what I'm being asked to do is write a policy that reflects what the law says we are required to follow already. So we already have a law book. We already have a decision from the commissioner, which constitutes law, because when she interprets the law, it becomes the law. So we're writing a policy that says follow the law. I don't know that it's necessary, but I'll do what I'm told.
I agree. That's what we discussed last time.
So if I may just make a comment, first of all, that came to us asking for an opinion from the Commissioner of Education, and there was a comment made, and I forget whom, about cost on this matter. It was the prior solicitor's recommendation. It was the prior solicitor's recommendation, not the current solicitor's recommendation, to seek out an opinion from the Rhode Island Department of Education, not our current solicitor. Our solicitor just worked on the information that was posted to the Rhode Island Department of Education. Largely, that came from the prior solicitor. Again, it was the solicitor's recommendation that suggested that we seek the opinion from the commission. So that was the recommendation of the prior solicitor. So we're just following the recommendation of the prior solicitor that the Rhode Island Department of Education gave us this opinion. That's it. So at this point, I'm going to ask is there any other comments at this time or questions from the membership? No. All right. So I'm going to move the motion at this time. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Nays. Abstentions. Motion carries. Okay, important dates, December 2nd, school committee meeting, school committee made with full district.
Can the December 2nd school committee meeting be moved to the auditorium in the high school?
Is there, I'm going to make a motion at this time for adjournment. All those, do I have a second? All those in
Can I
favor
have a
signify by
question
saying aye.
first? Can I ask the
All
question,
those
please?
signify by, there's a motion on the floor. All those,
I have
all those in favor
I
signify
have
by
a
saying aye.
question. I have a question, please.
Oh, do I have, John, how did you vote?
He didn't.
Nay? Nay?
Thank you, John.
I'm sorry, you have to address the chair.
I'm not speaking.
You have to address the chair.
I
What
was,
is
you were
what is-
ignoring
What
me.
is the question?
It says school committee members may, with full justification in writing or electronically, have an item reviewed for placement on the agenda in such time as it must be added. I'd like to include that it's not just the members, but also the chair, and that all supporting documentation be included for all members of the panel, so we know what we're going to discuss when we do prepare for it.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, there's a motion on the floor to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Nays, abstentions, meeting adjourned. Thank you.